So I was born and raised in Puerto Rico. Puerto Ricans today, thank you. But although I was born and raised in Puerto Rico, I live in Wellesley. Wellesley is best known as the halfway point of the Boston Marathon and of the Scream Tunnel. Scream Tunnel is this loud cheering section of Wellesley College students, my alma mater. In 2008, I happened to go to the commencement, and the president at the time, Kim Bottomley, compared life to the Boston Marathon. And she explained that very few people run the Boston Marathon to win. Most people run it for very personal reasons. And as I sat in the audience, I thought about how in 1993, when I graduated, I would have completely missed the point because I was running to win it. I had my plan mapped out. I was going to work in intellectual property law. I traveled abroad extensively, and then I worked abroad for 7 years in Brazil, Peru, Italy, and China. I was on the fast track. Then in 2004, my 3-year-old daughter was diagnosed with autism, and I had to look at myself and think success as I had defined it. And I realized that I was running for something much, much more important, my daughter's rights. And now I realize that I run the marathon of life to support and empower families who have children with disabilities. At the time of my daughter's diagnosis, we were compelled to leave China and move back to the United States, where her medical and education care was so complex that it became a full-time occupation. And as I ran around, I wondered, what happens to the Latina mom who does not speak English? What happens to the Latina mom who has humble means or has never had access to higher education to advocate for the services like I am doing? And I started researching, and I learned that in Massachusetts at the time, there were no education attorneys that were either Latino or who spoke Spanish as a first language. So I became a peer resource to families who did not speak English and wanted to advocate. I created workshops and network so families could get together and speak in Spanish. But this was just the beginning, because then I realized that the truth was that we were never going to be in a level playing field unless there was an attorney to go against the other side. So I left behind my international career and I went back to law school with the promise that I was going to serve Latino families in underserved communities so they could have the same access to education. This fraternal interest had become a driving passion for me. And that driving passion is what drove me to establish Ramos Law. 1/4 of all the children in Massachusetts in school right now are Latino. 18% have disabilities. 2/3 of people that go to legal services seeking free legal services are turned away because of lack of capacity. And we know that those families do not have the funds to go to a private attorney. So the reality is that these parents are seeking help for nothing more than access for their children's education. So Ramos Law is the culmination of my dream to help families who have gone through the same struggle I have and to allow them the access that I have had. So I created an innovative firm where the structure is that families pay based on their income. So they pay what they can. And as a result, for every year, we've had several hundreds families that would have never been able to seek legal representation if we had not been able to offer them our services. So the amazing thing about that model is despite all of the conventions, it is economically viable. And we're able to offer a firm for families that does not have to rely on the traditional nonprofit model of grant funding and fundraising. So these families now are incredibly grateful for their work. But most important for me is that this is something that it's gratifying and it's purposeful. And I want to tell you and I want to encourage you, when you think about what makes you run your life, to not only think about that passion, think about a passion in an innovative way that allows you to do something that feels close to your heart and it's not just to win it. So I'm going to leave you with one very quick anecdote. The most fulfilling part of my job is when I meet a parent or they send me an email or a note telling me how what a transformative experience it's been for them to work with me and to have their children completely change and have access to the services they need. Those parents are my scream tunnel. But what I hope that we talk about today, and what I hope through all the thousands of children that I have helped over the last decade, is that they're going to have the power and the education and the purpose to be the leaders in the general society that we talk about today. My name is Tere Ramos, and this is how I amplify.